The door does not creak. It sighs. A wide, calm breath of wood and warm hinges that have been opening for a very long time. The air that slips through is cool and pine-sweet, as if the night outside were patiently waiting at the threshold. You step in, and the light changes, not brighter, softer. Shelves rise like tall trees, their spines leafed with thin gold, their end caps carved with tiny constellations that seem to shimmer when you are not looking straight at them. A lantern hangs from a braided cord above the aisle. It does not swing. It simply glows as if it remembers summer. This is the archive that dreams of Gravity Falls. It is not a place on a map. It is a place you reach by slowing down, by breathing in and then out, and letting the night carry you a little. The wooden floor is old but kind. Footsteps do not echo here. They dissolve into the hush, the way a river takes a fallen leaf without making a scene of it. A card catalog waits near the entrance, its tiny brass handles polished by hands that never hurried. The labels are written in looping ink, echoes of the land, founders, pines, pages that whisper, ledger of curiosities, codes, oddities. Farewell. The drawers glide open with a gentle slide, each card a small invitation. You choose the first, and it does not feel like choosing. It feels like being chosen by something patient and good. You notice small things as you move forward. Dust that sparkles only when it wants to. A ladder that rolls without squeaking, as if it prefers to be quiet, too. The shadows here are not deep. They are restful corners where light sits down to catch its breath. Somewhere far off, a clock ticks in an easy rhythm. Tick. Space for a thought. Talk. Space for a memory to land. Tonight we will open a few books and read slowly. We will not rush. We will not wrestle. We will touch each page as if it were a leaf we admired and then return to its branch. If a chapter wants to drift into the next like a river into a lake, we will let it. If a story feels like a dream we once had and almost forgot, we will let it come back on its own. We will be careful with the bright and the strange. When an image is sharp, we will soften its edges until it is safe to hold. The town is out there beyond the door, lights in a handful of windows, a diner humming, an owl that is not quite an owl watching from a telephone line. But the archive keeps the town as a lullaby keeps a melody. So we will begin here in this stillness with the first drawer card we took gently into our hand. We will begin with the land itself and how it remembers. Breathe in, the pine, the paper, the lake-cool draft that finds you even here among the shelves. Breathe out. Let your shoulders lower, let your eyes soften. The page waits. The page does not mind the pause. When you are ready, the first book is ready too. Open to the map that is not inked on paper but pressed into the boards under your feet. The Valley of Gravity Falls does not present itself all at once. It arrives the way night arrives on a clear evening, shadow by shadow, color by color, a blue that deepens without hurrying, branches that release day in small, polite pieces. The land remembers this ritual every time, and it remembers you. There is a ridge to the north that looks like a sleeping animal. In moonlight, the outline of its spine seems to rise and fall, slow as a giant's breath. People once gave it names, but the ridge politely ignored them and kept its own. When fog gathers there, it gathers differently than in other places. The fog does not spill, it nestles. It does not hide the trees. It trims them in pale silver so that, in the earliest minutes of second twilight, when the sky is not quite night and not quite day, each trunk appears portrait-lit, as if some old painter were still at work with a quiet brush. Second twilight is a local rumor the land tells to anyone who stays still long enough to listen. It is that pause between the last call of a daytime bird and the first confident sentence of a night creature. It is the minute when the river turns from a path to a mirror, and then just as gently to a lantern. On those nights, if you stand by the river bend where the stones remember the soles of many shoes, you can hear the water humming a tune that is almost a memory. Almost because the river likes to keep one small part of its song a secret. Not to be unkind, just to be itself. The ground here is layered in stories. A thin layer of needles from this year's summer. A thicker layer from summers before. Below that, the patient soil where roots travel in quiet conversations. There are roots that grew wide and then changed their mind and grew down. There are roots that loop around one another like sleeping hands. Forever ago, a tree fell and rested, and now it is a moss-soft bench where you can sit and hear the forest think in kind, slow words. If you were to walk the path that leads away from town, past the sign that is slightly crooked on purpose, you would find a patch of ferns that glows a little where the moon finds it through the pine needle roof. The ferns are not trying to glow. They simply remember sunlight so well that at night they cannot help but practice it. A beetle crosses the path and does not hurry because nothing in this chapter asks anyone to hurry. A moth makes a small arc and chooses a new line, satisfied with both. There are rocks in this valley that hold warmth long after sunset. People sometimes sit on them during the first long week of summer and tell careful stories that fade before the wind can carry them. Other rocks are cool at noon and cooler at night. Touching them is like pressing your hand against a quiet promise. If you rest your ear on a certain flat stone near the lake, you might hear a low tone that comes from far inside the earth. It is not a warning. It is not a spell. It is the earth reminding itself that it is old and steady and content to be what it is. The lake breathes fog some mornings and keeps it folded at the edges, like a letter it plans to open later when the day is less bright. At night, boat lights sometimes drift across the surface without boats attached. That is not a danger. That is a ritual. The lights move with a purpose and then stop in a small circle, as if holding a quiet meeting. If you ask them politely what they discuss, they dim a little. Not to refuse, to smile. Trees here have habits. One stands with its branches always tilted a little to the west, listening for news from the ocean. Another has grown in a slow spiral, not dizzy, just curious about what it feels like to be tall in every direction. A cedar near the trailhead drops cones exactly where they will not trip anyone. You could call that luck. The cedar would shrug, which is to say the cedar would continue to be a cedar. Every so often, the land changes the way it tells time. The sun climbs at its ordinary pace, and yet, in the valley's hush, minutes become longer, as if stretched gently like taffy in warm hands. You notice this when you realize you cannot quite remember when you sat down on the moss bench. An hour or 3, it does not matter. The land is not counting. The land is resting with you. There is a story that the river once ran backwards for a handful of breaths at midnight, not in a rush, not as a trick. The river simply wanted to greet a small waterfall it had missed on its way down that day. So it turned, met the drop with a soft laugh only the stones could hear, and then resumed its downstream work, which is hardly work when you love it. The fish did not mind. They liked the novelty. The reeds applauded quietly by leaning the right way. Nightbirds here compose short songs. 3 notes, space. 2 notes, space. One note that feels like a dot of ink at the end of a gentle sentence. When fog sits low, their voices move along the surface as if the fog were a page and the song a line being written across it. Somewhere far off, something claps once. Not thunder, not a hand. Maybe a tall tree twitched and a dry bough found another. The sound is small and perfectly enough. You can measure a place by what it is willing to share when no one is asking. The Valley of Gravity Falls shares moonlight on the backs of leaves. It shares the patient sound of a far creek that keeps its longest stories for stones. It shares the comfort of a field that has decided for the night to be a lake of grass, its waves moving slowly in a breeze that smells of mint and clean soil. It shares the fact that you belong here if you breathe with it. The land's echo is not an echo of voices. It is an echo of kindness. Footpaths that remember shy feet and brave feet the same way. Bridges that lean a little closer to the water so the water can confide in them. A meadow that forgives a picnic blanket and forgets it by morning, not out of carelessness, but because it prefers the present to the past when the present is gentle. If you listen long enough, if you let your thoughts slow and line up like smooth stones, you will hear a sentence the valley has been saying since before anyone learned its name. The sentence is simple. Rest is part of the story. The land says it again and again and again, not because you have not heard, but because saying it is one of the land's favorite things to do. We close the book a little, not shut, just enough to feel the weight of the cover in our hands. We set it back on the shelf that smells like cedar and soft dust. The ladder waits, and the next shelf knows we will come when we are ready. We are ready now. The next book wears a ribbon the color of old brass. Its title is written in a hand that practiced by lamplight and learned its loops from the curls of wood shavings on a cabin floor. Founders, not the kind that stump and shout. The kind that arrive with pockets full of seeds and a pencil tucked behind the ear. The cover opens without a sound. The first page is a gentle drawing of the town when it was not yet a town, only a clearing where stories were getting comfortable with each other. Nathaniel Northwest is here, but not to be argued with. He moves through these pages as a person in a bedtime story moves, smoothed a little by kindness. He writes lists that are more like poems, things to build, things to mend, things to thank. A bell that will ring when it feels like ringing and still be useful. A clock that might, at some later date, reverse, not as a prank, but as a joy. A square that welcomes a market, a dance, a hush. He makes plans, and the plans do not bristle. They unfold like maps that are happy to be looked at. There are others, too. A carpenter who talks to the wood before deciding where to cut. A baker who proofed dough on a windowsill and shared the smell with anyone walking by, which meant everyone. A seamstress who mended not only clothes but old disagreements, or at least made them fit better. They all signed a paper once, promising the town they would help it grow without making it hurry. The ink faded in places where fingers touched it often, which is exactly how ink hopes to age. The book remembers a mayor who rose to speak whenever the sun warmed the porch step, and then often fell asleep in the middle of a sentence. Not from boredom, but because he believed rest was persuasive. People listened anyway. He woke to applause he hadn't expected and said, "Thank you," which is something a town can build on for a very long time. Street lamps arrived as if they were friends of someone already living here. They were placed where shoes would feel safer, and where moths would enjoy a short visit. The lamp's glass was hand-cut, and on certain foggy nights, each pane made a small halo on the ground. Children like to step from halo to halo as if climbing a staircase made of light. No one told them not to. The steps did no harm. The founders argued the way gentle people argue, with tea, with drawings on scrap paper, with pauses where each person considered the other person's thought as if it were a bird that had landed on the table. When they disagreed, the book writes, they walked to the lake together and did not talk until the water had said what it wanted to say. By then, the important part had moved into focus all by itself. They named streets, sometimes twice, because the first names were fine, but the second names were better bedtime words. They set the market day on a time the shadows liked. They chose a place for the school where morning light would unroll across the floor like a good rug. They drew a line around the old trees and called it park without trimming the edges into straightness. When a sign leaned, the sign was allowed to lean, because leaning is a kind of conversation with the wind. There is an entry in the margins that says, "Leave a little mystery." It is written in smaller letters, as if the writer was telling it mostly to the paper. The founders did not try to measure every odd hush in the valley. They believed a town could be both known and unknowable, and that people sleep well where a bit of wonder is permitted to stand undusted at the edge of the square. A parade once stepped off without a plan for where it would end. It moved slowly past the baker's door, where the baker stood with a tray and offered rolls with butter that tasted like afternoon. Children waved ribbons. A violin played a tune that had only 2 notes and a comfortable space between them. When the parade reached the far edge of town, it turned into a picnic under the tree that keeps listening to the ocean. No one asked who organized it. The tree might have. On winter nights, when the wind came down from the ridge like a careful blanket, founders put an extra lantern in their windows for travelers. The lanterns were not instructions. They were sentences that said, "You can stop. You can rest." The book insists that a town where windows know how to speak like that is a town that will keep its people light in their hearts. We turn the last page and find a list in that looping hand. Not what to build next. What to keep. Keep the slow hour before supper. Keep the bench with the good view of the clock tower. Keep the way the bell sometimes rings backward and do not teach it otherwise. Keep the path to the lake narrow so feet will be careful. Keep the habit of letting the fog decide when the day has ended. Keep your thanks near the door so you can give them as people come and go. We tie the ribbon back in its bow. We place the book where it was and feel the shelf settle slightly, pleased. The ladder rolls a short distance as if nudged by a friendly breeze. The next ribbon is a calm blue, the color of a river at evening. We reach. The cover is simple, the leather worn where thumbs have pressed it open for years. Pines, the title says, and the serif on the P curls like a wood shaving. When the book opens, the room seems to lean closer, not to eavesdrop, but to listen alongside you. Family stories do this to a place. They warm the air without making it heavy. Here are 2 boys, long before gravity falls, learning the shapes of hope. One finds marvels in the pages of science magazines. One finds them in the loose boards of a flea market table and the clink of coins earned by being quick and clever. They both love the feeling of a plan. They both love fixing a broken thing and seeing it live a little longer. They both love each other in the way brothers do when time stretches out ahead, like a road they are certain they will walk together. The book does not hurry into sorrow. It gives their childhood the space it deserves. A backyard that becomes a ship, a laboratory, a quiet theater for 2. Summers that taste like cold soda and smell like rain on hot sidewalks. Fights that ended in apologies spoken without looking up, which is one of the best kinds of apology. A promise made in voices that had not yet learned how to be tired. We will look out for each other. At some point, as always happens, life asks for different things from each of them. The one with notebooks wanders farther into questions that glow under red desk lamps. The one with the fast grin and quicker story tests. How far a dollar can stretch when you believe it can stretch forever. The book keeps this gentle. It does not sharpen the edges. It lays the moments out like smooth stones on a riverbank and lets the water of years wash between them. Gravity Falls enters the story not with a trumpet, but with a hush. A letter. A map corner torn and folded twice. A whisper from someone who heard from someone who paused by the crooked town sign and felt a good kind of oddness in their bones. The boys are not boys by then, but the book lets you see them that way for one last second as they stand at the edge of a valley that looks like a thought they used to share long ago. One brother arrives with a journal that is not yet written, only imagined. He feels the land's echo at once, the way some people can feel a thunderstorm while the sky is still clear. He sets up a lamp and begins to draw. He listens until listening becomes a habit, as steady as breathing. He thanks the trees for standing so well. He thanks the river for liking questions. He sketches a creature he does not try to name, only to know. The pages take his careful lines and keep him safe. The other brother finds a building that is almost a shop and almost a story, and decides to make it both. He hangs the sign and straightens it, then lets it lean 1 degree because a perfect line feels less like home. He collects oddities that are not always odd and sells them with a wink that is not unkind. He learns everyone's favorite pie without ever writing it down. He laughs and the walls learn to laugh with him. The town feels the weight of 2 lives arriving. Not a burden, a balance. Curiosity and hustle. Lantern and marquee. Late-night notes and early morning coffee. The book sets their days down in soft paragraphs. A nod on the street. A favor returned. A quiet ache when a plan goes sideways and a door closes with a final sound. There are pages here where the ink is faint, as if the writer's hand hesitated. Those are the pages of distance, of years that pulled the brothers to opposite sides of a map, and then taught them the skill of missing. The book is kind with this too. It does not swell into thunder. It keeps the room steady while it names what hurt and what held. It lets you stand with them when they stand again with each other and decide without saying it much that family is a path you keep walking even when it turns. Summer with the twins arrives like 2 candles brought into a room that has been tidy but a little too quiet. Dipper's questions fit right away into the margins of the old journals, as if margins had been waiting for him. Mabel's laughter fills the shop's corners and convinces the dust to dance. Sue's appears in these pages like a good uncle in a bedtime tale, with a toolbox and advice that never rushes. Wendy leans in a doorway and lets the afternoon be exactly what it is. The book glows a little brighter during these chapters and then calms again, the way a hearth settles after a lively story. Family is not only blood in this volume, it is the habit of making space for someone else's favorite chair. It is the decision to keep a light on, even when you are sure the person knows the way home. It is the mending of a torn sleeve in the place where the tear will not show, not because you want to hide it, but because you want the cloth to last. It is the laughter after someone tells on themselves in a way that makes everyone feel safe enough to do the same. Near the end of the chapter, there is a small envelope glued to the page. Inside is a single sentence written in a hand you recognize by now. It says, "We are different kinds of brave, and that is why we fit." The paper smells faintly of salt air and pine sap, which means the ocean and the valley have both held it. You slide the sentence back and press the flap gently, and the book seems pleased, as if gratitude were something it could feel across its paper. We close the volume. Not tight, never tight. We let it rest where it belongs. The archive breathes, if a room can do that, and you find that you are breathing with it. The door to the next aisle is not a door at all, only a space where the shelves decided to be generous. The light is the same there. The hush is the same. Your steps are a little slower now, not because you are tired, because the night is doing its work, and the archive knows what it is doing. When you are ready, we will roll the ladder one shelf farther and let the next book lift its ribbon toward your hand. Not yet. There is time. The archive keeps time kindly. The ladder rolls with a courteous hush and stops beside a shelf whose wood carries the faint smell of graphite and lantern smoke. A narrow volume awaits with 3 silk ribbons marking 3 separate hearts within one body. When you open it, the paper does not crackle. It breathes. Margins widen as if to make room for your shoulders to lower. Ink glows the color of tea at dusk. The title fades in like moonlight on a desk. Pages that whisper. Before the words there are sketches, lines that began as listening and ended as a map of wonder. A beetle rendered with the care of a portrait, its armor cross-hatched like a tiny cathedral. Pine needles measuring the length of a careful afternoon. A vending machine door drawn 3 times closed, ajar, and open each pose an invitation, never a command. The lamp that watched over these drawings is somewhere in the archive, still lit in the way that memories remain lit when they remember being useful. Turn a page and the first whisper arrives. It is not a voice. It is a feeling of being welcomed by a notebook that has waited for the exact weight of your hands. The sentence reads, "Observe without naming first." Beneath it, a small square of taped vellum holds a pressing of fern, almost transparent, as if it kept a copy of sunlight for anyone who missed that day. Some pages hold diagrams of machines which may or may not have existed, but the diagrams never boast. They prefer the humility of possibility. An arrow points to a gear that might turn if spoken to kindly. Notes in the margins suggest the right tone of voice. Encourage, do not insist. A sketch of a magnet next to a drawing of a memory with a question connecting them. What does attention attract? The answer is a soft paragraph on the next page. What you love becomes easier to find again. Here and there, the writing leans into caution, not to frighten, but to keep the night gentle. If the forest offers a shortcut you have not earned, take the long way. The long way is a conversation, and conversations grow friends. Next to this, a doodle of a short path, grateful to be ignored. Even shortcuts, the book suggests, enjoy resting. The journal teaches you how to turn pages. Thumb at the corner, pause, listen, then lift. This is how doors are opened in a town where doors have feelings. This is how you discover that some entries were written in pencil on purpose to allow revision after learning. A passage on the shapeshifter ends with a line erased until only kindness remains. When something shows you many faces, believe that each one is trying to be understood. An entry labeled Night Work lists the calm duties of a lantern-carrying observer. Count the breaths of the river, not all of them, just enough to know the pace. Trace constellations without needing their names. Place a pebble on a stump to say thank you. Record how long it takes for fear to pass when you let it pass. At the bottom, a reminder. Sometimes the bravest note is the one you do not write when the moment asks for quiet. Between the line pages, a pocket holds a folded map of Gravity Falls that changes under a soft gaze. Paths appear when you think of patience. Benches add themselves when your feet want to rest. On cold nights, the map grows warmer around the diner, a visual hug from coffee and pie. The Mystery Shack flickers as a polite lighthouse for anyone looking for a laugh that won't tip their chair. The whispers you realize are the habits of attention learning to speak. They ask the smallest questions. What does the pine smell like after rain? How does the sky taste when it's blue enough to drink? Which floorboards know the names of visitors? Answers arrive like birds landing unafraid, like coins washed clean, like cool milk becoming a story. The third plank from the door carries 3 names and keeps a 4th for later. A section titled Safe Experiments lives in the center. Try listening to the forest with your eyes closed for 1 minute. Try walking the path as slowly as a cloud. Try naming 5 sounds that are not yours. Each experiment ends the same way. Report, calm achieved. Near the end, a ribbon marks 3 blank pages. These are not empty. They are space held open for what you will notice next time you go outside with a pocket notebook and the intention to be surprised. The final line writes itself in your head as you read it. Write softly. Paper remembers your hands. You close the journal the way you might close someone's favorite window slowly, leaving enough of a crack for the night to sing through. The ribbon lies across the cover like an exhale. The archive listened with you, ready for the next ledger. This book balances differently in your palms, a little heavier near the front, as if coins were glued under the first signatures. The cover is stamped with small stars and price tags that will not stick to your fingers. The title is practical and proud, Ledger of Curiosities and Other Completely Legitimate Enterprises. The tone inside, however, is all heart. The first page is a register of days that were good, written large, and days that were only fine, written just as large. Beside each date, a doodle, a top hat with a rabbit who decided to unionize, a jar labeled Lightning Domesticated, a snow globe showing summer scenes, a genuine mermaid scale sitting like a single comma in the palm of a delighted tourist. So prices are scrawled, then crossed out and replaced with better ones, then crossed out again with a note. Kid discount. Smiles are currency. Objects tell their stories in footnotes. A cracked monocle swears it once helped a captain find a star no one else could see. A rubber chicken claims credibly to have saved a picnic by attracting rain to itself rather than the sandwiches. A mirror insists that it shows you as your best friend sees you on your best day, which is to say, forgivingly. When you pick it up, you feel remembered, and you have no idea by whom. The ledger approves with a small check mark drawn like a wink. There is an aisle map of the shack drawn as if it were a carnival. Every shelf is a booth. Every booth is a story. Step right up to the cabinet of half-true wonders. Behold the once and future snow cone machine. Marvel at the door that isn't until it is. Little arrows guide the visitor not in straight lines, but in gentle loops, so no one's feet feel rushed and everyone ends near the register, smiling about something they can't quite name. A section titled Repairs, Mysterious and Otherwise catalogs what was mended. A laughing sign that forgot the joke. A string of bulbs convinced it had already burned out. It had not. A jar of pickles whose brine felt underappreciated. The notes are tender. Explained to the bulbs that the evening needed them. Told the jar its job was brine and that brine is noble. The sign remembered the punchline when heard from the back room. Laughs restored. Receipts are taped in. A broom, a bell, an extra bell, in case the first one learned independence. A bulk order of postcards that depict the shack looking 5% braver than it actually is. In the margins. Customers like brave places, but not too brave. Put courage in the lighting. There is a list entitled Things I Thought I'd Sell But Decided to Keep Around because they make the place kinder. It includes a chipped mug that suits the first coffee of the morning, a chair that creaks only in friendly syllables, a shelf whose middle sags like a hammock, and a jar of beach glass that adopts the color of any sweater nearby. Midway through, the ledger turns contemplative. A page reads, "What is the shack?" followed by answers scratched at different hours. A stage for laughter, a weather vane for curiosity, a safe roof for weird, that means well, a lighthouse that runs on snacks. A long underline after the last one suggests a grin. Toward the back is a ledger within the ledger, a gratitude roll call for the people who crossed the threshold. To the kid who believed the haunted toothbrush was only shy, you were right. To the couple who paid with exact change and then sang a thank you in harmony, consider this your encore. To the person who needed a place to stand still for a while, the floor remembers your kindness in return. The final entry is a promise written like an oath and a lullaby. As long as there is a bell to ring and a light to switch on at dusk, the door will open. And anyone who needs a laugh that doesn't hurt will find one here. The numbers in the margins add up to something bigger than money. You close the ledger, and the cover feels warm, like a hand that has been holding yours the whole time. The book is bound in deep green cloth, soft as moss. Embossed on the cover are shapes that might be leaves and might be footprints and might be stars if you look long enough. The title curls like a vine, a field guide for kind encounters. A pressed clover marks the beginning. When you touch it, the page smells faintly of rain. The first entry greets you before you finish reading its name. An Homo socialis, garden fellow. A portrait shows several small figures adjusting each other's hats with the gravity of surgeons. Notes. If you find them living under a bird bath, compliment their civic planning. Avoid startling during group choreography. Offer crumbs. Refuse petitions to form a pyramid until after naps. Turn a page. Ursus polyphonica, multi-bear. Illustration of a bear with many faces, each singing a different line of the same lullaby. Field notes. Prefers ballads that rise no higher than a fence post. Accepts audience participation, provided the clapping stays soft. If encountered, hum. If uncertain, hum anyway. Odocoleus stellatus, star-eyed deer. The eyes are lanterns. The lanterns are patient. Observations. Approach at the speed of a falling leaf. Do not attempt to count eyes. Counting is a daytime habit, and this is night work. When the deer blinks, the path ahead briefly becomes obvious. Say thank you aloud or with your shoes. Gremloblin reconciled. The drawing shows a creature mid-apology with a bouquet of dandelions. Marginalia has learned the value of returning borrowed items with a snack tucked in. Will guard your picnic if you promise to tell it how the story ends. Vulnerable to kindness. Keep spare kindness in pocket. Arachne librarianus, bookweb weaver. Delicate lines from shelf to shelf. Each thread holds a memory you forgot you loved. Behavior catalogs. Laughter by tone. Cross-references size by season. If you pass through a web, you will remember a good day with surprising accuracy. Apologize for the disturbance. The librarian will forgive you before you finish the sentence. Lamp sprites. Small lights that choose to be mistaken for fireflies. Notes. Escort service between porch and gate. Payment in whistles and gratitude. If three gather over your shoulder, you are telling a story worth finishing. Pond listeners. Ripples with attention spans. Field tip. Speak your worries to the water at a careful pace. Watch as concentric circles carry them outward until frogs nod. Nods indicate receipt. not necessarily agreement. The guide never warns in harsh tones. Instead, it offers partnerships. If you meet a shape that is many shapes, remember that you are too. Show it one of your kindest faces first. If a shadow seems curious, introduce it to your own. If a tree sighs, lean against it. Often it is only asking for company. There is a map at the center spread, not of locations, but of moments, where gratitude grows quickest, where laughter echoes most like chimes, where a person is most likely to feel brave without witnesses. Small symbols mark places the bestiary recommends for naps. One is the moss bench. Another is a porch step that has heard every story and judged none of them. At the end, a pledge. This guide exists to help you walk kindly. Close it when you wish, but keep the habit open. Step slow, look soft. Listen more than you name. Remember, every creature prefers to be a neighbor rather than a spectacle. You close the cloth cover, and it feels like tucking a blanket around a sleeping friend. This slim volume sits upright, as if ready to volunteer. The cover is a field of quiet blue with a single compass rose drawn small in the lower corner, as if to suggest that guidance is something you keep close but do not wave around. The spine has been opened and closed enough to learn resilience. Inside, the handwriting is careful but not fussy. The first line is a question that fits like a sweater. What if listening is a kind of science? Dipper's pages do not race. They walk at a lantern pace, circle back when a footprint looks lonely, and draw boxes around mysteries not to trap them, but to frame them kindly. He writes hypotheses that sound like bedtime dares. If the vending machine door is a door to a door, then the second door should appreciate politeness twice as much. Results. Please and thank you were indeed keys. A small star in the margin. Repeatable. Entries begin with the world and end with the heart, the way good observations often do. Saw a pattern in the knots of the diner's tabletop. Might be a map. Might be wood doing what wood loves. Either way, felt grateful that patterns exist and that some of them don't need solving to be beautiful. On another page, fear arrived at 9:14 p.m. Fear left at 9:22 when given a job. Hold the flashlight. Recommendation: always give fear a small, useful job. There are diagrams of problem solving that treat other people as partners rather than tools. Arrows point toward Seuss, steady hand, toward Wendy, steady head, toward Mabel, steady joy. A note: in any team, include someone who remembers snacks. Another: if the answer feels cold, warm it by asking how it helps someone else. Some pages are crossed out with a single line, readable, still a decision to remember learning rather than hide it. Thought knowing more would always feel better. Correction: knowing kinder feels better. Endpoints matter less than how we carry the middle. On the next page, tried again. Brought patience. Brought a sweater. Occasionally, the book looks up from its own words and speaks to you as if you were the page. If you are reading this at a time when questions crowd the hall outside your door, light one lamp. Invite them in one at a time. Offer tea. They will behave better as guests than as thieves. A paperclip holds several small Polaroids. Footprints you can barely see unless you know they're there. A string diagram that begins nowhere and ends in a neat bow. A picture of the night sky in which nothing is circled because everything is worth circling. On the back, a note. Keep what helps you look up. Near the end, a pocket labeled for future dares contains blank cards. On the first, written lightly, what if the bravest thing is staying gentle? On the second, what if the unknown is just something waiting to be thanked? The last card is empty, but you can tell it's thinking. The final page does not resolve. It rests. Questions do not love fences, they love porches. Leave the light on for them. Good night for now. You close the book and feel steadier, like someone tightened a screw you didn't realize was loose. The cover is a sweater. Not literally, but the cloth has been woven to resemble one. And touching it is like remembering all the times laughter made a room warmer. Sequins are sewn into the fabric in tiny constellations that only glitter when you think about someone you adore. When you open the book, confetti does not spill out, but somehow the air seems to celebrate anyway. Mabel's pages are illustrated with markers that never ran dry and pens that understood enthusiasm as a sacred duty. Headings curve and bounce. Margins bloom with stickers of stars, llamas, hearts, and items that defy tidy categories. A hot dog wearing sunglasses. A comet with a friendship bracelet. The first sentence wears a smile even before you read it. Everything is better with a friend, even a Tuesday. Here, joy is not noisy, it's generous. A to-do list reads, make someone feel welcome. Add glitter to an unglittery corner, metaphorically or literally. Learn 3 people's favorite snacks and keep them on deck. Remind the mirror it looks great today. Each item has a checkbox and all are checked. Not because the list matters more than people, but because finishing kindness feels like applause for the day. Instructions for sweater magic appear between stories. If the evening is cold, wear color like a sunrise. If a friend is quiet, knit a listening place in the conversation. 5 stitches of 2 of take your time. Repeat until warmer. A doodle of a scarf wraps around a gloomy cloud. By the next panel, the cloud is raining sprinkles. There are entries about courage, but they are stitched from soft fabric. Wore a bold sweater to a shy party. The sweater broke the ice while I ate the chips. 10/10 would delegate to knitwear again. Tried a new craft and made a mess. Learned that messes are how courage takes shape. Gave fear a sticker that said, good job for trying. Fear calmed down. Mabel writes love notes to the town the way some people write grocery lists, often and with practical specificity. Dear Diner, thank you for the corner booth that forgives elbow glitter. Dear Forest, thanks for holding the echo of our giggles without judgment. Dear Mystery Shack, you are a weird uncle who makes good popcorn, and I am grateful. She also writes field guides to friendship. Spotting a future friend. Look for someone whose laugh sounds like a question you'd love to answer. Consider their shoelaces. People with interesting laces are statistically delightful. Bring extra laces just in case. If someone stands alone at a party, approach with gentle energy. Offer one fact about yourself that is either true or fun. Bonus at both. Invite them to help you choose a sticker. Now you are a team. Pages flip like a breeze through wind chimes and land on a section titled Emergency Joy Kit. Contents: 2 jokes that do not punch down, a Band-Aid with a dinosaur on it, a granola bar that crinkles cheerfully, tiny bubbles, a pen that writes compliments smoothly, and a playlist of songs you can hum under your breath while being a decent human. Instructions: restock often, share without keeping score. Mabel's philosophy of mystery is simple. If you don't understand it, decorate it until you do. Not to hide the unknown, but to give yourself the courage to sit near it. A drawing shows a question mark wearing a sweater. The question mark looks at ease. Caption: see? Already less scary. There is a page where glitter has been sealed under tape so it won't misbehave. Next to it, in loopy handwriting: boundaries are cozy when they sparkle. Nearby, a letter to Tomorrow. Hey, Tomorrow, we're rooting for you. Bring snacks if you can. If not, bring yourself. That's plenty. Toward the end, the book practices goodbyes that are actually see you laters. When summer leaves wave like you're sending a boat across a lake, big arcs, no regrets. Keep the friendship bracelets on. Keep the inside jokes friendly. Keep a drawer for letters you haven't written yet. They like having a place to stretch. The last page is a collage. Ticket stubs, candy wrappers with neat edges, a pressed wildflower that convinced a whole afternoon to be lovely. In the center, a short poem. Joy is a tool and a shelter and a bridge. Use it gently. Use it often. You close the book and swear the room brightened by one small degree. Somewhere in the archive, a lamp sprite approves with a tidy sparkle. The shelf settles. You listen to your own breath and discover it has become part of the room's hush, steady and kind. The latter, all on its own best behavior, drifts one rung to the right, as if to say, when you're ready, there are more pages that want to be turned slowly. Two thin volumes lean against each other like shoulders on a porch step. One smells faintly of sawdust and microwave burritos. The other carries the cool of evening air and pine. Their ribbons are tucked in, relaxed, as if neither book believes in making a fuss. You lift the first and feel the weight of a toolbox in your hands without the ache. Sus Ramirez, a manual for gentle fixing. The front page is a work order filled out in block letters and kindness. Problem, squeak in the floor. Solution, listen to the squeak until it feels heard. Status, fixed itself while we were listening. Problem, sad arcade cabinet. Solution, new fuse, old joke. Status, cabinet laugh first. Problem, visitor lost their laugh. Solution, snack, story time status, return with a bonus snort. Notes, spill down the margins like hardware sorted into coffee tins. Rule 1, tighten the bolt that wants to be tightened. Leave the bolt that likes its wiggle. Rule 2, if something breaks while you're fixing it, you are now fixing the new thing. Act like this was always the plan. Rule 3, compliment the object. Nice wiring, bro. Objects know when you're being real. A fold-out diagram reveals a heart-shaped circuit labeled with simple acts. Hold the door, count the change twice, ask if they ate, tell them they did great, even if it squeaked once. Wires run between them until you realize it's not a circuit at all. It's a map of how Suze moves through a day. At the bottom, if the task is heavy, lift with 2 people and a joke. Receipts are tucked in with tape that refuses to stick neatly. A bucket of bolts, assorted doodads, a replacement bell for the bell that discovered jazz and refuses to ring on time. In the corner, a Polaroid. Oz with a kid on his shoulders reaching up to change a light bulb. The caption, "We are taller together." Halfway through, there's a quiet page that asks nothing from you. It's titled Lunch in the Break Room, alone but not lonely. A burrito and wraps with a respectful crinkle. A handheld console rests. Game pause, because the best part right now is the warm chair and the blue light through the blind's thin stripes. The note at the bottom is a whole philosophy in 8 words. Fixing things is resting too when you love them. On the last sheet, a checklist titled End of Day. Sweep the floor like it told you a secret. Say goodnight to every machine. They pretend not to hear, but they do. Turn the sign to closed with gratitude. Keep one light on for anyone who needs a late, hey man. You close the manual and pick up the second book. Its cover is the color of a late sky, and the title sits like a laugh you almost heard. Wendy Corduroy, The Handbook of Unruffled. It opens to a page that is mostly margins. The center holds a sketch of a lookout tower, simple lines stacked with patience. Around it, advice written like a friend dropping in and leaning against the counter. Stand where the breeze can find you. It knows things about the day you don't have to. Going quiet is different from going cold. Pick quiet. If a job needs doing, do it in your stride. Don't add drama unless it's for a story later. Flannel works on every day that expects honesty. There are training exercises, each more like a lullaby than a drill. The 5-minute lean, choose a railing, put your elbows down, let the noise walk itself out. The yawn share. Make space in a conversation for someone else's long breath. The backpack audit. Carry less, keep more. Water, knife, twine. One sweet thing, one true thing. Stories arrive in short, slanted paragraphs. Helped Suze pull a shelf that didn't want to move. Told it we were going to a better wall. It agreed. Watched a storm shrug its shoulders over the ridge. Told the sky we could take a sprinkle. Got a full-on rinse. Laughed anyway. Sat on the roof and named 3 stars after people who didn't need them, but deserved them. A page titled, "How to Be the Cool Older Kid Without Being a Jerk" is underlined twice. Notice the shy person first. Let other people be funny. Share the top step sometimes. When you break a rule for fun, clean up twice as much. Carry Band-Aids and don't make the cut a big deal. On the inside back cover is a leaf pressed flat, nearly invisible, until the light hits right, under it. If you let time be time, it will take care of half your problems. The last line looks like a smile you only spot when you're not trying. The rest? We got this. You place the 2 folios together again. They fit. One hand that fixes, one hand that steadies. The archive approves with the quietest click, like a well-made latch finding home. A lullaby of shapes. A triangle glints on the spine of the next book. But softly, like moonlight on a watch face. Inside, geometry is written not as a warning, but as a bedtime puzzle. The title page arranges itself while you watch. The cipher codex, Dream Geometry, reads slowly. The first spread is a meadow of signs, eyes, keys, stars, sticks in careful positions. An alphabet that looks like it was drawn by a compass learning cursive. A note printed as if to calm you. Symbols are only loud if you shout at them. Try whispering back. Shapes take turns stepping forward to introduce themselves. Triangle. I am a promise to point. That's all. Where you place me decides what I point at. Use me to send attention somewhere good. Circle. I am a hug that never ends. I keep things in or keep them safe. Decide which before you draw me. Line. I am a path. I can connect or divide. Tell me which job you're giving me and I will do it with less trouble. I am a mirror pretending to be a window. If you look through me long enough, you will see yourself being kind. Margins hold tiny equations that solve to feelings rather than numbers. Triangle eye, gentle question. A door with manners. Circle, rush, breath. Patience you can touch. Line, not touching. Room for a friend. The codex includes a 2-page spread labeled Boundaries. A warm triangle stands behind a dotted circle. Caption. This is how to think about shapes at night. They are places for your thoughts to nap, not cages for them to rattle. A sentence follows that feels like a hand on your shoulder. No symbol is stronger than your decision to be okay. Then the codex does something kind. It gives you opt-outs. If a symbol makes your breathing shorter, close the page. Pour yourself water. Come back if you feel like it. If not, there are other books that would be honored to hold you tonight. This is written in a way that makes choosing rest feel like wisdom, not retreat. A section called Riddle Keys offers puzzles that open without stress. Find the word that becomes kinder when you read it backward. Hint in small type. No becomes on. Use sparingly, but it's nice to remember. Count 3 things in the room that are circles, then put your worry in one of them and give it a soft spin. Draw a triangle and label the corners. Me. Someone I trust. Time. Put your question in the middle and let the shape do the holding. Ink illustrations show dangerous shapes softened with context. A pyramid becomes a tent in a campsite. An eye becomes a lake catching starlight. A tangle of lines becomes a ball of yarn with a cat sleeping on it. Caption. Everything fierce looks gentler when you add a blanket. If you look long enough, you notice the codex never says a certain name. It doesn't have to. It knows that you know the stories and trusts that turning the volume down can be its own form of respect. In the back, a pocket holds a small, translucent page you can lay over any symbol to turn it into a lantern. Instruction. Use when needed. Return when ready. The final theorem is the easiest to remember and the hardest to forget. Kindness pattern, meaning you can sleep beside. You breathe once more and the triangle on the spine no longer glints. It rests. This volume has a lock that is already open. Inside, letters line up the way friends do when forming a human ladder under a treehouse hatch. The title runs like a whisper down the hinge. How Gravity Falls hides its messages so you can find them gently. The first chapter is A1Z26 but with hot cocoa. A tidy chart pairs A with 1 and Z with 26, but the notes underneath are about attitude. When you decode, eat slowly. Let each letter be a marshmallow. Stir between sips. An example sentence decrypts into "you are doing fine." You didn't know you needed that message until the numbers gave it back to you. Next is Caesar's shift, set to stroll. Wheels show alphabets sliding past each other in friendly lanes. Instructions. Pick a number that feels like the pace of your walk. Shift by that. If the message sounds grumpy, try a smaller walk. Practice phrases appear and become small kindnesses as you turn them. Laori Burax becomes "I love you." The margin adds "helpful as a neighbor." Tell that to yourself too. Adbash, mirror talk. Follows an alphabet flipped end to end. The book places a gentle hand on the method. Sometimes the far end is the close one in disguise. That's not a trick. It's a hug from the other side of the shelf. You decode ZGV, HGVI, RHZ, ORV, and it resolves to "the test is a lull." You decide to believe the page. A spread titled "Invisible Ink You Can See Without Heat" teaches the oldest trick in the valley. Put a little faith next to a little patience. Watch how words appear in their own time. In the corner, a lemon slice is drawn like a moon. Under it, citric acid is basically sunshine you can squeeze. The book becomes playful. It lays out acrostics in diner menus. The first letters of each item spelling things like "tip your server" and "call your mom." It shows backmasking for beginners, except here the instructions tell you to play a melody forward very softly until you hear the meaning without any reversal at all. Sometimes secrets do not want to be chased. They want to be welcomed. You find postcards peppered throughout. The clock tower with every 7 replaced by a tiny heart. The statue in the square wearing a scarf only you can see. A directional sign that points toward here, also here, still here. Each card's back holds a simple cipher. Each solution is an ordinary blessing. Drink water, call a friend, look up. The centerfold is the listener's wheel, 3 nested rings labeled look, listen, and feel. You spin them and land on combinations like look, corners listen, hums feel, shoulder blades relaxing. A footnote says, every solved code is actually a solved breath. There is a section for the impatient. It does not scold. It offers a compromise called 2 clues and a nap. Gather 1 clear hint and 1 good guess. If the answer still hides, nap. Answers enjoy being the first thing you see when you wake. Someone has underlined nap 3 times. You suspect Mabel visited this page. At the end, a stamped promise. We hide things because we love the look on your face when you find them. The town is not keeping secrets from you. It is keeping surprises for you. The lock on the cover was never meant to keep you out. It was meant to make the opening feel ceremonial. You close it softly so it can feel useful again. The last book for tonight wears no ribbon and knows you'll open it anyway. The cover is the color of late-night diner tile, and the title is a white-lettered hum. Ordinary Magic, a catalog for calm evenings. Every entry is short and true in the way a good yawn is true. Soda Machine #3 hums in a key that makes people remember their first bike. Dispenses root beer and occasional advice. Don't text them yet. Maintenance, pat the side twice. It likes being recognized. Jukebox at Greasy's has learned to play songs that don't yet exist but should. Windows down, no plan. We both reached for the ketchup. The night the power flickered and we kept talking. If you ask for something sad, it starts with hopeful anyway. Crosswalk on Maple blinks a little longer when it rains so you don't have to run. Thanks you if you wave. It measures thanks in elbow angles. Bench behind the library holds heat like a kept promise. People confess small things to it. I took the last donut. I'm scared of doing well. I like the quiet more than the party. The bench nods by existing. Lake lanterns appear without chords, drift to where voices soften, form circles that look like meetings and feel like prayers, but nobody's in charge and nothing is demanded. Frogs keep minutes by blinking. Town clock sometimes rings backward at noon because noon too benefits from remembering where it came from. On those days, lunches taste like picnics. The laundromat's lost sock bin always contains exactly one pair if you're patient. People leave small treasures there. A note that says, "You're fine," a mint, a poem with good bones. The bin prefers being called a findings basket. Porch lights across the valley agree quietly to wait an extra hour on nights when someone is due home but late. Moths form a union and call it the night shift. Their contract guarantees glitter in moderation. The alley cat, with no obvious home, knows every open window that smells like cinnamon, accepts pets on a strict consent basis, rewards compliance by escorting you to houses safely, visible only if you don't make a big deal out of it. The tree that listens to the ocean collects rumors in its needles, drops cones where they're needed most, by boots that forgot what trail they were on, by small hands learning the art of pockets. If you lean your back and close your eyes, you might hear gulls inside pine. The catalog includes usage instructions for living with gentle weird. Do not interrogate the odd thing. Introduce yourself. "Hi, Soda Machine. You hum nice today." Choose delight over proof. If the street lamp flickers when you laugh, consider cause established. Practice gratitude drills. List 5 things that went right in the last 10 minutes. If you can't think of 5, try 3. If you can't think of 3, drink water and count to 7 while looking at something green. Keep a pocket for small wonders. Carry a marble, a paperclip, a ribbon, a smooth rock. These are not tools, they are reminders. A 2-page nighttime map doesn't show streets or addresses. It shows likely places for a good conversation and benches that do the heavy lifting and windows where someone is baking something that fixes a day. You're invited to add your own marks with a pencil tied to the spine with string. Near the end of the book is a seasonal appendix. When fog lowers the ceiling, it suggests soup, a call to a person who never rushes you, and moving slowly enough to notice the sidewalk's tiny fossils, which are just leaves that changed careers. It reminds you that fog is the sky's way of asking for a closer look. The final page is only one sentence, printed in type that knows when to stop. Nothing here is trying to scare you. It's all just trying to keep you company. You let the page rest open for a while, and the room agrees. Somewhere beyond the archive walls, a crosswalk blinks patient. A jukebox cues a song about nothing urgent, and the lake folds its fog like a letter to be opened in the morning. You close the book, not because the night demands it, but because your breath has slowed into the shape of sleep. The ladder is exactly where you'll need it later. The shelves keep your place without paper. The archive keeps you gently until you're ready for the next chapter. Held like a painting. The aisle lights dim, not darker, just calmer, and a book with a cover that changes color depending on where you look lifts its own ribbon. The title writes itself in slow strokes. A calm account of the day the sky forgot its lines. When you open it, the first page is a landscape already in progress. Color rearranges politely. Corners soften. Even the letters take a breath before they begin. There was a day when up decided to try left, and left borrowed a little from down, and the town did not argue. The clock tower's hands loosened their schedule and waved to everyone at once. People waved back, because manners help even when time is experimenting. The streets learned new choreography and then kindly taught it to the shoes. Doors that had always preferred one side cracked open on the other for a while, purely to see if they liked the change. Some did. Most returned to their favorite hinge with the satisfaction of a chair finding its old groove. Fences, never convinced they were great at diagonals, tried being curves for an afternoon. They looked good. A few kept the look. Shapes got ideas. Triangles floated like kites with no strings and then settled gently on rooftops as if trying on hats. Eyes appeared in murals and storefront glass, not to stare but to mirror whoever stood before them with extra gentleness, as if the looker needed reminding, you are here and you are okay. The air wore bright patterns the way a quilt does on the day it's finished and spread across a bed. No wind, no rush, just the unfurling of something that had taken time. People moved carefully, the way you walk when the floor is newly mopped and you respect good work. The diner served pancakes in shapes that made children laugh and then reflect, which is rare for pancakes. The jukebox, delighted by the absence of rules, found a middle key and held it like a steadying hand. Hums replaced alarms. You good? Replaced a dozen more complicated questions. Not everything stayed where it belonged. A mailbox lifted 6 inches and discovered the view from up there was excellent. It drifted down again before anyone had to jump for letters. Park benches rotated to face each other, then, embarrassed by their forwardness, angled back toward the lake, where they could admire the water without staring. The lake was gracious about it. The sky's palette moved like a very slow kaleidoscope. Colors remembered combinations from older paintings. Gold tried a conversation with coral. Lavender wrote a note to teal. We should meet more often. The sun, noticing how much was already happening without it, kept its tone kind and steady, like a friend who brings soup. When night arrived, it did not pounce. It pooled. What you might have called chaos on a louder day felt here like a rehearsal. Everyone learning how to stay soft while the set changed behind them. A ladder stayed put. A child handed a lamp sprite to an elder and said, "Hold this so you can see my face." The sprite took its job seriously, hovering at cheek height until the elder said, "There you are." The town practiced a new skill, standing together without squeezing. People gathered in loose ellipses, giving one another enough room to breathe, but not enough to feel alone. They told small stories out loud so the air could help carry them. They agreed on a shared project, notice, then think. Wherever a thing had decided to be unusual, someone stood close by to say, "We see you." And the thing, reassured, relaxed into a friendlier shape. Even the stranger sights behaved. A sidewalk briefly unzipped and then zipped itself politely. A lamppost bent down to check on a raccoon. It was fine. It had simply never been this tall before. The raccoon adjusted its expectations and moved on at a responsible pace. If there was fear, it was given jobs. Hold my hand. Count to 10 and back again. Watch that window for me. Tell me if the curtain waves. Fear, competent when trusted, performed beautifully and was invited to sit on the porch with everyone else when the counting was done. The town learned phrases that helped. That's new. We can learn it. The ground is still our neighbor. Soup? The soup worked almost as well as the phrases. Eventually, because all weather, even dream weather, eventually asks for a rest, the colors returned to their usual shifts. The benches remembered their favorite angles. The mailbox, newly pleased with its everyday height, settled. The air folded its bright quilt and put it where quilts go. People yawned in synchrony without planning to, the way birds sometimes turn at once because turning together feels good. The book closes this chapter with a picture. A street seen after the strange day, tidy again, but somehow deeper, as if the cobbles now knew a secret and were content to keep it. Under the picture, a sentence that will make sense whenever you need it. Weirdness that rests is just wonder with its shoes off. You turn the page and find you have learned how to wave at a triangle without flinching, and how to let your eyes be kind mirrors when someone looks into them for steadiness. This book smells faintly of cardboard, oranges, and sweater drawers. Its title is stitched in thread you can barely see. How to leave a place without making it smaller. When it opens, the spine doesn't crack. It leans in as if to say, "I'll hold these pages as gently as you're holding this hour." Farewell begins in pockets. Dipper empties a few and finds helpful things he forgot he carried. A pebble with Lake Cool still in it. A ticket stub. A paper clip bent to the shape of a question mark that doesn't need an answer. These go in a small tin labeled Keep. Next to it, another tin labeled Giveaway fills with better objects. A compass that always points to whoever needs company most. A pencil that writes compliments more easily than grim lists. A sticker sheet almost, but not quite, used up. Mabel's desk becomes a launch pad for little kindnesses. She writes postcards the way other people drink water, often and with relief. Dear Bench, behind the library, thanks for listening to us without gossiping. Dear Soda Machine Hash 3, your hum healed an afternoon. Dear Town. Clock. Never be ashamed of ringing backward. It suits you. Each card gets a doodle, and at least one heart wearing sunglasses. Suze arrives with a roll of tape and a plan anyone can follow. Step 1. Write fragile on the box that holds your laughter, even if you know it's tougher than it looks. Step 2. Wrap mugs in old maps so even if you get lost later, your tea will know the way. Step 3. Put tools where you can reach them first on the other end. Screwdriver, kindness, sandwich. Wendy's list is shorter, but somehow covers everything. Don't overfold. Keep the flannel on top. Leave your part of the porch clean. Look back once, not 5 times. Let the air know you'll miss it without making the air responsible. She ties the last knot on a bundle and sits with the bundle as if to reassure it. You are still you when the address changes. The town participates. Porch lights learn the names of the travelers and agree to blink a little longer tonight just in case. The diner saves a corner booth and a slice that will somehow not stale while you're gone. The crosswalks promise to remember your pace in case you return on a windy day. There are rituals to leaving that no one writes down, but everyone knows by feel. You walk a loop past the places you borrowed light from. The lake's edge where lanterns made plans. The trail where second twilight waited for your breath to match. The sign with a tilt you grew to trust. You touch wood and stone with a palm, the way you'd pat a friend's shoulder when words would only tangle. Somewhere in the forest, a cedar drops a cone exactly where your foot will find it. So you'll have something to put on a new windowsill that smells like both here and now. The book offers gentle language for goodbyes that do not want to sound like endings. See you when the air is middy again. Save me a seat by the jukebox in your stories. Text me the first time the clock gets weird. I want to hear it ring backward from where I am. Even the hardest sin, the one you say to the room when it has finally emptied and the echo is yours alone, is written as a blessing. Thank you for being a place that let me be brave gently. Packing means choosing. What you think you can't carry tends to fit when you fold it into sentences. What you cannot take will somehow be waiting inside the first kind person you meet in the next town. The book knows this and repeats it in different shapes until the meaning is soft enough to touch. Gifts are exchanged. Stan, who pretends he's bad at ceremonies, gives each traveler something that looks practical and is actually profound. A key that doesn't fit any lock now, but will fit a door later when you've earned it. A coin that always lands on "you'll manage." A receipt signed by the day. Paid in full by laughter. No change necessary. Ford, who can't help but diagram feelings, draws a small map with only 3 landmarks: curiosity, rest, reunion, and shows how any two connect to the third if you take your time. Night gathers kindly. A bus breathes at the curb. Hugs happen without choreography. People find the exact right pressure, as if the archive had taught them how to calibrate. Promises kept simple are made. We'll write. We'll look up at the same time. We'll say the names out loud sometimes, so they stay shiny in the mouth. As wheels turn and the road begins its soft rhythm, the town does not become smaller in the rear window. It becomes portable. It moves seat to seat as memory, then rides along at eye level as confidence, then tucks into a pocket as a folded map that warms when touched. Someone starts a song too quietly to call it singing. Everyone hears it anyway. The last spread of the book is a series of small, square pictures. Hands lifting a box together. A porch light staying on a minute too long. A pen leaving a dot at the end of a letter and resting there satisfied. Underneath one line, "Farewell" is just another way to say, "I know the way back." This volume greets you with the smell of salt and rope, as if it rode in on the back of a gull and took a seat on the shelf without knocking. Its cover is split down the middle. Forest on the left, ocean on the right, stitched with a seam of starlight. In small, steady letters, what the valley wrote after they left, what the ocean wrote back. The town does not stop. It settles. With the twins gone, mornings remember their older shape, but keep a little of the sparkle, the way a shirt keeps the scent of a campfire after you've washed it. The diner still hums. Its jukebox learns one new song and renames an old one. 2 laughs I miss, and that's okay. The crosswalks recalibrate to the pace of whoever's shoes arrive today. The bench behind the library absorbs a few extra sighs and gives them back as stories to people who need them. The mystery shack, never truly quiet, adjusts its heartbeat. The bell rings at different hours and is just as proud of itself. New curiosities join the old. A bottle that refills with whichever soda your friend prefers. A photograph that shows the person you are when you're well rested. Tourists still stop in. So do neighbors on their way to somewhere else, because sometimes somewhere else is a room where you know the cash register and it knows you. Seuss's checklist grows. Dust, jokes, kindness. He adds right back and puts stamps near the till next to a sign. Letters mailed here travel faster than you'd expect. Wendy climbs the lookout and keeps the weather company. On a page that seems to open by itself, she writes a year's worth of tiny entries that read like weather reports for the heart. April 3rd, light breeze, honesty recommended. June 19th, heat lightning, storm may not arrive, hydrate anyway. August 12th, meteor shower of good news. Lie on your back and let it pass through you. People check the board and plan their days less perfectly and better. Letters arrive from the road and from the sea. Dipper's ink stays careful. His sentences are patient with themselves. Found a used bookshop that sorts mysteries by how much light they let in. Wrote down 3 titles that reminded me of us and 2 that want to remind us later. He includes a scrap of map with no streets on it. Only arrows labeled, try here and try when you're rested. Mabel's envelopes are confetti that learn discipline just enough to reach their destination. I taught a bus to clap. Or it taught me. Either way, we clapped. She tucks in a sticker that says, "You've got this," and means call me if you don't. Out past the headlands, 2 brothers read the sea the way people who love land read rings and stumps. Stan keeps a ledger that looks like nonsense until you realize every line is gratitude disguised as inventory. 2 fish, heroic. 1 rope, faithful. 3 sunsets, show-offs. Coffee, still has it. Stories, more than yesterday. Ford maintains a log that speaks softly even when it speaks in symbols. He sketches constellations noticed from a deck that doesn't hold still but keeps him honest. In the margins he writes, "Some mysteries are friendlier when you arrive with a sandwich." Under one smudge, "If the universe is a library, waves are how the aisles say hello." On rare red ink days when the past tries to pull his sleeve, he writes one sentence, "We are different kinds of brave, and that is why we fit." And the sea agrees by not being difficult for an hour. The town grows new caretakers of small wonders. A kid adopts the lamp sprites between home and school, escorting them with a pencil flashlight like a marshal of tiny stars. A soda machine picks up a second language, "You're okay" in 3 tones, and becomes multilingual in reassurance. Someone repairs the bell in the clock tower and leaves the backward ring in place because tradition is a better story when it includes its quirks. Festivals remain, softer around the edges. The summer market learns to weave in remembrances. A table where you can borrow a joke and return it with interest. A booth where a person will tie your shoe if today is the sort of day that unties you. The tree that listens to the ocean keeps doing that, but it also begins a side hobby, counting the times people lean on it without asking permission and granting it anyway. The count is high and not recorded as a complaint. Every so often, visitors pass through and pause at the crooked sign. They don't always know why they stopped. They always feel better for it. The archive notes their names with the same care it gives to names it already knows and slides a ribbon into a chapter that has just now decided to exist because maybe a new friend needs it. The book carries an appendix of future tense, but gentled. One day they will come back, not to fix a broken thing, but to praise a working one. One day soup will taste like a roomful of laughter again. The room will be new, and the laugh will be the same shape. One day the river will run backwards for 4 breaths, and someone will think of a brother, and someone else will think of a sweater, and both will be right. It also includes instructions for holding on without gripping. Keep the letter on the table where you can see it. Let it teach the sugar bowl patience. Tell stories in present tense on purpose. Mabel laughs here. Dipper notices this. We breathe together. The grammar's bridge. When the porch light forgets and turns off early, do not take it personally. Turn it on for it, and call that friendship. The last pages look like blank water until you tilt them. Then writing shines up from beneath like fish surfacing and dipping again. You catch enough to understand. The town is still writing, the sea is still answering, the archive is still filing everything under good to remember. The final line does not end with a period. It trails into a gentle arrow that points toward the aisle where the next book waits. You rest your palm on the seam between forest and ocean and feel both temperatures at once. The page under your hand warms and cools in alternating pulses, a heartbeat and a tide taking turns. Somewhere far off, on a deck lit with a lamp that knows how not to blow out, a ledger closes for the night. Somewhere near, under a window that remembers the knock of summer moths, a town breathes in and then out. The archive keeps the rhythm, unhurried, sure. When you lift your hand, a shimmer remains for a second. The kind a good memory leaves on the air. It fades only because it has gone to live where it belongs, in the part of you that knows how to come back. The book that remembers you. The ladder comes to rest beside a shelf you might have walked past a dozen times without seeing, the way you might walk past your own reflection in a window and only recognize it when the room behind you smiles. There is no ribbon on the spine, only a thumb-soft shine where countless hands have lifted it. The title is stamped so lightly that it appears only when you tilt the cover toward your breath. Eternal Archive. It opens itself. Pages lift and settle like the ribs of a living room, steady, familiar, made for sitting together. The first spread is a map, but not of streets. It charts the routes your attention has learned, from lamp glow to window hush, from bench warmth to path patience, from a friend's laugh to your own shoulders lowering without needing permission. Small symbols mark where you once stood and felt the day make room for you. The key in the corner does not list objects, it lists gestures. A dot means you looked kindly. A star means someone looked kindly back. The legend is generous. Every mark you make here makes room for another. In the upper margin, a hand you recognize writes a simple line that explains the book without capturing it. Some shelves keep stories. This one keeps the hands that turned them. The archive remembers how you arrived tonight, how the door sighed, how the dust chose to sparkle, how the clock ticked at the pace of a lullaby someone forgot to hum but did not forget to know. It remembers you without keeping score. Remembering here is not a ledger, it is a porch light. Turn the page, and paper behaves like water you can walk on. It holds but does not grip. Paragraphs settle into soft columns that don't box in your thoughts. They give your thoughts a quiet field to graze. The headings are habits you already carry. The shelf of starting over that doesn't judge how many times. A place for first drafts and second attempts, and that afternoon you begin again. Not because you failed, but because morning had ended and beginning again felt honest. The drawer of kept promises, even the small ones. A note labeled, "Call Mom," tucked beside drink water, and say thank you to the crosswalk. Every promise, once kept, folds itself into a paper bird and roosts on the upper edge of the page. They look out for each other, and by doing that, look out for you. The index of gentle braveries. 2 columns of tiny entries, each a micro-heroic. Asked for help, let someone go first, laughed without apologizing, slept. The page numbers point to today. At the center, a thin tissue sheet overlays a drawing of Gravity Falls at night. When you lift the tissue, more lights appear, lamps, windows, lake lanterns, pocket flashlights, the kind of stars that feel as if they learned their sparkle from sweaters. When you lower the tissue, the lights stay. This is how the archive teaches you. Once you learn to see a glow, it is very hard to unsee. There's a section called Recurrences, a calm celebration of the way comfort returns. The river will hum that one note again. The soda machine will sing its first bike song again. The clock will forget the direction of noon again, and the town will clap for it with smiles. Your breath will find its slower pace again. On the facing page, reassurances, which are the same truths, wearing softer shoes. A quiet envelope is pasted near the bottom. Inside, 3 blanks where your name could go, followed by a sentence that waits for your handwriting. You will come back when you need to, and the shelf will already be holding your place. The book does not insist you fill it now. It likes the feeling of a space left open for later. Still, a pencil is tied to the binding with a length of red thread. If you choose to write, the graphite will look like dusk and behave like morning. Flip forward and the paper starts doing a friendly trick. Each new spread remembers a page you loved earlier and returns it gentled. The bestiary's star-eyed deer now drawn with a path leading toward a porch. The shack ledger's lighthouse that runs on snacks, illustrated with a bowl that never empties of exactly enough. The codexa triangle softened into a tent you can sit beneath while it rains compliments. The archive is looping itself into a braid, past, present, and the part of tomorrow you've already made safe by being kind today. There is a ledger here, but it belongs to time and refusal to hurry. Columns labeled hours unrushed, things not measured, moments you let be exactly the size they wanted. The totals are not numbers. They are weather reports. Light breeze of relief, steady warmth in the corners of a room, fog that keeps you company instead of hiding the road. A page titled, How to Carry Gravity Falls When You Are Not In It reads like a recipe in a grandmother's notebook. One pocket object, smooth stone, loose button, short pencil. A smell you can summon, pine, pie, rain on dust. A sentence that works everywhere. We have time or soup. A practice, wave at triangles, thank benches, count frogs instead of worries. Optional, sweater that tells the room, we're fine. Mix with breath, serve warm, reheat whenever. On the next spread, the archive practices its favorite magic, making you feel seen by naming common things with uncommon care. The second goodnight. The one you give the room after you've turned out the light and then turn it back on to get the book you forgot and the water you forgot and the feeling you forgot, which is that the room loves you enough to wait. The courage of noticing. Any moment when you choose to observe instead of defend. The kindness of edges. Doorways, thresholds, borders of carpets. The places that tell you you're allowed to pass and mean it. Halfway down a page of small drawings, a tiny boat moves across the lower margin. Stan and Ford's ship. Reduced to an icon you can recognize at a glance and expand at will. A caption travels with it and never quite finishes, the way waves don't. If the universe is a library, waves are aisles, and we are patrons with sea legs. In the upper margin, a reply written from land. If the universe is a library, trees are shelves, and we are bookmarks that sometimes step outside for air. The archive lets you hold both at once. At the back, where most books end, this one offers a room. The return room. It looks like the Mystery Shack's front counter, and like Greasy's corner booth, and like the library bench, and like the path bend where Second Twilight does its best work. It looks mostly like a chair sized exactly for whoever needs it, with a lamp that adjusts itself and a bell on a long string that someone tugged once and someone will tug again. The bell is not an alarm. It's an "I'm here." There's a final tool tucked into a paper pocket, a translucent card printed with the words, "You belong," in ink you can only see when you hold it over your own name, over your own hand, over your own breath on a cold night. When you slide it away, your hand does not forget the shape of the letters. The last paragraph of the chapter knows what it is doing. It speaks slowly because it wants to walk beside you all the way to the edge of sleep. The archive has shelves for pine needles and for lantern math, for codes that become cocoa and for back porch bravery, for goodbyes that refuse to be endings and for doors that sigh instead of creak. It has a shelf with your name that is not a claim but a welcome. When you leave, the shelf does not empty. It holds its breath the way the lake holds fog for morning. Sure you'll be back. Sure you'll know the way. Sure that even if you don't, a bench or a bell or a backward noon will catch your sleeve and turn you gently toward home. The page edges glow for a moment only, as if to teach your eyes a brightness they can recreate with memory alone. Then the light rests. The book settles. The ladder doesn't move. It has learned the timing of your yawn. Breathe in. Pine and paper. Breathe out. Room and river. The archive hears both and nods, which is to say, it continues to exist exactly where you need it. The aisle's lantern lowers itself, shorter by an inch, then another, the way a voice lowers when it realizes it can whisper and be heard. Somewhere a pencil decides its last job tonight is to point at tomorrow and then nap. The door at the far end does not close. It suggests closedness. That is enough. We return the eternal archive to its place. Not precisely the same slot. Paper expands and contracts with weather, so do people. But the shelf smiles anyway. The card catalog keeps its small brass secrets. If you were to pull a drawer now, it would open to the exact card you didn't know you needed. Rest, see also, everything. We walk back the way we came, but the floorboards won't have it. They let you float a half-inch above them, carrying you like a creek carries a leaf that took a brave step. The air practices what it always practices at this hour, untying the day, knot by gentle knot. Greasy's jukebox in the memory down the street chooses an unhurried song called Windows Low, Nights Low. The town clock considers noon and decides to ring backward once for luck, then thinks better of it and saves the ring for your next visit. Outside the archive, Gravity Falls is the size of your breath. The sign with its friendly lean tips a little more, only to show you it can. The crosswalk on Maple is still blinking with the patience it saves for rain, even if the sky is clear. Lamp sprites wait at shoulder height, ready to walk you to whatever you call bed tonight. One of them winks. That's not magic, that's etiquette. We take stock for a last soft inventory. Bench that holds the shape of your sitting, accounted for. River that hums a tune the stones requested, accounted for. Deer that light the path by simply existing, accounted for. Shack that answers the bell like a laugh with manners, accounted for. Sky that learned new colors and agreed to keep them private until you're ready, accounted for. You here, with your breath doing good work, accounted for. There are phrases that help with goodnight the way a doorknob helps with doors. Choose one and carry it through the threshold. We have time. This can be small. Thank you, day. Thank you, me. If none fit, use silence. It's the archive's favorite word. You can travel now if you like. Back through the aisle, out past the porch, across the town that keeps your footnotes safe. Or you can sleep right here in the chair that fits you, because it was made by a room that listens. The archive doesn't mind. It is as good at being a destination as it is at being a pillow. The bell on its long string gives one last, barely there hello. Maybe Seuss tugged it in another room. Maybe the breeze thought it would be kind. Maybe bells enjoy the last word. Either way, nothing is required of you but the oldest generosity you know, closing your eyes when your eyes ask. Before you do, the town, through its lamps and benches and backwards noons and forward mornings, offers a blessing that has been said here in so many ways that it needs no language left at all. Still, tonight, let's give it one. Sleep under the pines. The shelves will keep your place. The door will know your hand. The map will warm in your pocket. The lantern will remember your face. Good night, Gravity Falls. Lights dim to the level where dust chooses not to sparkle and will again when it wants. The clock ticks once more, then takes a long breath with you. The page in front of you becomes the softest shape a page can be. A closed book that waits without wanting. The archive listens to your sleep the same way the lake listened to fog. Quietly, gladly, sure. And somewhere, a little farther out where the salt air carries names carefully, two brothers on a deck lower their own lantern and say goodnight to a horizon that has been practicing hello. The wave they send toward land is not large. It doesn't need to be. It will arrive as an extra minute of patience at a crosswalk tomorrow, as a ring from a clock that feels like a laugh, as a pocket stone that is exactly the right weight. It will arrive as sleep. Good night.